Good day everyone. This is video lesson in ITEP 101 or Human to Computer Interaction. This video lesson will cover the first part of Module 2, which is the lesson entitled Principles of Software Usability. The topics here include Usability Heuristics, Jakob Nielsen's Heuristics and Real-World Examples, Heuristic Evaluation, Iterative Design Approach, Web Design and Application Standards, Website Design and Development Guidelines, and Schneiderman's 8 Golden Rules of Interface Design. Now let's proceed to the first topic, the Usability Heuristics. When you say heuristics, these are a set of general principles used in interactive design to ensure usability and provide a relatively simple and quick testing regime to identify problems and possible solutions. The reason why we use heuristics is to ensure usability when you design the user interface. When you say heuristics, the term heuristics it means mental shortcuts that can facilitate problem solving and probability judgments. These strategies are generalizations or rule of thumb to reduce cognitive load and can be effective for making immediate judgments. However, they often result in irrational or inaccurate conclusions sometimes. But moreover, heuristics is very helpful when you want general principles to guide you in the design of a user interface. They are called heuristics because they are broad rules of thumb and not specific usability guidelines. Now let's discuss one of the heuristics that are available. And the most common is this, the Jakob Nielsen's heuristics. So who is Jakob Nielsen? Jakob Nielsen, he is like the father of usability. And after a lot of research, he defined some rules and good practices to achieve good usability. These good practices serve as a checklist for building communication with the user. So this is just an overview of Jacob's 10 usability heuristics. So we have here the visibility of system status as the first. Second, match between the system and the real world. Third, user control and freedom. Fourth, consistency and standards. Fifth, error prevention. Sixth, recognition rather than recall. Seventh, flexibility and efficiency of use. 8, aesthetic and minimalist design. 9, recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. And the 10th is help and documentation. So now let's discuss each heuristic. The first one is the visibility of system status. So as defined here, when you say or when you consider the visibility of system status, the design should always keep the users informed about what's going on through appropriate feedback within a reasonable amount of time. So let me discuss with you some tips for you to be able to apply this first heuristic. So the first tip, communicate clearly to users what the system state is. No action with consequences to users should be taken without informing them. Second, you have to present feedback to the user as quickly as possible. And third, you have to build trust through open and continuous communication. So as an example, I have used Google Slides for example for each heuristic. So for the application of the first heuristic, in Google Slide, whenever you mouse hover a command or a button or a control, and information about that specific command on control button is being displayed, just like this one. So let me show you another examples. Let us walk through this quickly. So the first one is the You Are Here maps. So I know you are all familiar with this kind of maps. So the You Are Here maps are interactive mall maps that shows people where they currently are to help them understand where to go next. Another is the checkout flow. So in the checkout flow, the user is being shown a multi-step processes in order for them to know the steps that they have completed, the steps that they are currently working on, and what comes next. So the next application or the real-world example of this heuristic, the first heuristic, is the phone tap. In the phone tap, the touchscreen UIs need to reassure that when the user taps the phone, it has an effect. It could either be visual change, change in the color, or haptic feedback, or you can feel a slight vibration when you touch the phone. So that's the first heuristic, visibility of system status. Now let's proceed to the second heuristic, the match between system and the real world. So in the second heuristic, the design should speak the user's language. So anong ibig sabihin nun? Kailangan gumamit ka ng words, phrases, tsaka yung concepts na familiar yung mga user, rather than internal jargon. When you say internal jargon, ito yung mga salita na maaaring programmer lamang yung may alam. Dapat gamitan mo yung terms, yung words, yung phrases, yung mga concepts na familiar yung target users mo. So, paano mo gagawin yon? Just follow the real-world conventions, making information appear in a natural and logical order. So, here are some tips to apply the second heuristic, the match between system and the real world. First, ensure users can understand meaning without having to go look up a word's definition. So, kapag naman ginamit mo yung words, yung terms, yung phrases, at yung concepts na ginagamit talaga ng target users, they don't have to look to the definition of that word para magamit nila yung command or yung function na inilagay mo dun sa system. Pangalawa, never assume your understanding of words or concepts will match those of your users because again, you are the programmer or you are the designer, but you have to adapt or adjust to the need of your users. And the third tip, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, user research will help you uncover your users' familiar terminology. So, gather this information data or this important data. Okay, aside from that, the terminologies that they are using, kailangan i-uncover mo din yung mental models around important concepts ng target users mo. Okay, so this is an example again sa Google Slides. If I want to download the file, I just have to go through in the main menu. Familiar ako na nasa file siya, hindi sa edit, hindi sa view, hindi sa insert. Because the users are familiar with the download being in the file menu, then they have included that command or control here in the file menu where you can download the slides in different formats. So, ayan, kita din nila yung file extension for the different downloadables available if you want to download a file, a Google Slides file. So, another example or examples, we have the stovetop controls. So, sa stovetop controls naman, yung controls, it should match the heating elements or the layout of the heating elements. So, in this example, if you want to turn on this heating element, you just have to turn this knob and the other knobs respective of the position or the layout of the heating elements. So again, there should be a match between the system and the real world. So the second is there are countries or nationalities that uses different terminologies for the same word with the same meaning. For words that has the same meaning. An example would be car versus automobile. So if the users think about this object as car, then use car as the label instead of automobile. There are countries that uses automobile. They are familiar with the car, with the term automobile instead of the term car. So use that instead. And then the third one, the shopping cart icon. This is easily recognizable. This means that you are adding something in your cart to shop or to buy. Okay, so that's for our second heuristic, the match between the system and the real world. Now let's proceed to the third. The third is the user control and freedom. So anong ibig sabihin nito? minsan, yung mga users, they perform actions by mistake. So if that is the case, they need a clearly marked emergency exit to leave the unwanted action without having to go through an extended process. So to do this, syempre dapat i-assume natin na mag-make ng mistake yung users natin. You have to support undo and redo. This is very helpful, especially sa mga video editing, image editing apps, kasi pwedeng ayaw nila ng effects na yon. So you have to give them the option to either undo or redo actions. Second, show a clear way to exit the current interaction. So halimbawa, they have created a mistake na hindi nila intended, kailangan meron kang clear way to exit, like a cancel button. And then the third tip is to make sure that the exit is clearly labeled and discoverable. Okay, so this is an example. Again, in the Google Slides, undo and redo actions are being supported. So next examples are, for this heuristic, is the exit sign. Okay? So kung ang mga physical spaces merong exit sign, ganun din dapat yung mga digital spaces. Dapat meron ding emergency exits. So the second, again, as we have presented, or I have presented a while ago, is the undo and redo actions. You have to let your users not worry about their actions because everything is easily reversible. And the third one is the cancel button. Whenever a user wants to have an action that may have an impact on your users, then if that is an accident, then you have to show them an easy way out. Okay, for an example would be deleting a photo. Most probably, they don't want to delete that photo, and yet they have done an action by mistake. So you have to give them an option, even if it's not an accident, even if that is intentional. Still give them this option. Okay, so the fourth heuristic is the consistency and standards. So yung users mo should not have to wonder whether words, situations, or actions mean the same thing. So meron tayong tinatawag na platform and industry conventions. So you have here some tips. The first tip is to improve learnability by maintaining both types of consistency, internal and external. So next tip is the follow established industry conventions, or the external consistency. So we have here, and again, example would be the Google apps, Google documentation apps. I have here for the Google Slides and the Google Sheets, you know, the look and feel of the main control menu on top of the Google document processing apps are the same across platforms, such as file, edit, view, insert, format, and others. And even the share button and the presentation or the other menus, you have this, you are familiar with the look and feel if you will jump from one platform to another. So another or real world examples are check-in counter in front of the hotels, as well as when you adopt this in an information system, your user should be, you have to follow the conventions of your users. And then in the design system, you have to use the elements from the same design system across the product lines. It lowers the learning curve of the users, just like the shape of the button, the color of the font, the color of the background, etc. And then the notifications. The standardized notifications are, I know you are very familiar with this application of these heuristics. Okay, so the color of the notifications, the feel of the notifications, probably also the font style and the font color and the font size are the same. So the fifth heuristic is the error prevention. So yung it's like the same with the previous heuristic, but the difference is the good error messages are important. Pero yung best designs carefully prevent problems. So ito yung difference dun sa isa. So kung may iwasan mo yung mistakes ng users, that's the better option. Either eliminate error-prone conditions or check for them and present users with a confirmation option before they commit to the action. So here are some tips. Prioritize your effort by preventing the high-cost errors first, then little frustrations as you go along. Second, avoid slips by providing helpful constraints and good defaults. And third, prevent mistakes by removing memory burden, supporting undo, and warning your users. So this is an example in the Google Slides, the version history feature of the Google Slides, where you can restore the content of your slides, presentations, or work to a state that is available here. So if you have inserted some things or some elements that are not supposed to be there, you can go back to the version of your choice. Okay, so for the real-world example, we have the guardrails, airline confirmation, the date selection on calendar. So let me discuss with you this airline confirmation where the user can review or the customer can review the flight details before proceeding or confirming the booking. Para nga naman malaman niya kung tama ba yung kanyang eroplanong sasakyan, yung time, yun ba yung gusto niya, yun ba yung convenient for that person, kailan siya babalik. So, dapat ay merong review of flights as well as the pay or the payment information. So, the date selection on calendar. So, ito naman, halimbawa, magbo-book ka sa Airbnb. And if that date is not available for that specific accommodation, then it is disabled. If that is available or that date is available or the dates are available, then you can click them. It is enabled. So to prevent, double booking, triple booking, and so on, para ma-prevent yung mga bagay na yon ay na-major yung implication dun sa users mo, you really have to think through how to prevent errors. Because there are really systems na mahirap kapag nagkaroon ng errors along the way. Okay, so the sixth heuristic is recognition rather than recall. So you have to minimize the user's memory load by making elements, actions, and options visible. The user should not have to remember information from one part of the interface to another. Information required to use the design should be visible or easily retrievable when needed. So the first tip, let people recognize information in the interface rather than having to remember or recall it. Offer help in context instead of giving users a long tutorial to memorize, and reduce the information that users have to remember. So let me go back to my previous example in the Google Slides where when you mouse over and information about a command or control button is being displayed. So here you have several examples: Lisbon comparison table, and the search. Okay, those are some of the implementations of this heuristic. The seventh is the flexibility and efficiency of use. We're talking about shortcuts here. That's hidden from novice users. If you are new, then probably you don't know the shortcuts of that specific app or system. But shortcuts may speed up the interaction for the expert users. right? Such that the design can cater to both inexperienced or experienced users, so allow users to tailor frequent actions. So the first step is to provide accelerators like keyboard shortcuts or touch gestures. Provide personalization by tailoring content and functionality for individual users, and allow for customization. So you have here examples or an example in the Google slide. Shortcuts are available, such as for the undo, it is Command Z or Control Z for the Windows. So some of the real-world examples for this heuristic are shortcuts, the keyboard shortcuts, and the tap to like. So instead of choosing options, you just have to tap it to like, just like in Instagram. Okay. So here, shortcuts, the keyboard shortcuts, and the tap to like. So the eighth heuristic is the aesthetic and minimalist design. Interfaces should not contain information which is irrelevant and rarely needed. Every extra unit of information in an interface competes with the relevant units of information and diminishes their relative visibility. So the tips to apply this for implementation are the following. Keep the content and visual design of UI focused on the essentials. Second, don't let unnecessary elements distract users from the information they really need. And the third, prioritize the content and features to support primary goals. So an example is again the Google Slides, where you show the options that are available or that can be done when you are clicking or you are working on an element in your presentation. Okay, so the next is some more examples are the following: ornate versus simple teapot, communicate, don't decorate. So communication is different than decoration. Sometimes an interface is over-decorated. Masyado na siyang madaming design. Over-designed na siya. Okay? And nawawala na yung usability, yung efficiency ng use. And the messy versus organized UI. So, you really have to work on making an organized UI rather than a messy one. Okay, so the ninth heuristic is the help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. So error messages should be expressed in plain language. No error codes. Precisely indicate the problem and constructively suggest a solution. So the tips are: use traditional error message visuals like bold, red text, but these are some conventions that you can tweak according to the design standards or design conventions that you are applying in your design. Pwedeng hindi naka-red text, pero yung design ng error message ay alam mo lang na the user has created a mistake by accident or not. Tell users what went wrong in language that they will understand. Avoid technical jargons such as error 101 or code 502 error, something like that. So tell them in the language that they can understand. And then offer users a solution like a shortcut that can solve the error immediately. So I will just show you this as an example implementation for that heuristic. Okay, but there are different implementations of that heuristic of displaying the error messages and actions for an error message. Okay, so you have here real-world examples, the wrong way sign. So the wrong way signs on the road remind drivers that they are heading in the wrong direction and ask them to stop. The internet connection error and no search result for that search query. And then the last heuristic is the help and documentation. It's best if the design doesn't need any additional explanation. However, it may be necessary to provide documentation to help users understand how to complete their task. So some tips: ensure that the help documentation is easy to search. Whenever possible, present the documentation in context, right at the moment that the user requires it. And then list concrete steps to be carried out. So in Google Slides, you also have the help options and yung mostly searched things in the help. So the real-world examples are the following: Airport Information Center. So it's easily recognizable to solve customers' problems in context and immediately. The frequently asked questions page, and the information icon where you can tap it in order for you to know what's going on, more details about that specific thing that you want your users to know, or the information that is being shown to them. Next, we have the heuristic evaluation. Heuristic evaluation is a process where experts use rule of thumb to measure the usability of user interfaces in independent walkthroughs and report issues. Evaluators use established heuristics just like the Jakob Nielsen's heuristics and reveal insights that can help design teams enhance product usability from early in development. So how do you conduct that? So you have here, of course, you have your heuristics ready at hand. And then these are the steps. We have 7 steps. So the first one, pick relevant heuristics. So in this case, you have picked the Jakob Nielsen's heuristics. But you can also use other heuristics that are available. And then pick task for evaluators to do. Evaluators to know. Pick task for evaluators to do, and then select 3 to 5 evaluators. Bakit 3 to 5? Kasi kung isa lang, yung mga errors na makikita niya or yung mga improvements na makikita niya ay limited as compared kapag 3 kayo or 5 kayo na naghahanap or nag-analyze or nag-evaluate ng user interface. And then explain your heuristics and agree on severity codes. Halimbawa, yung heuristics na to, pwedeng meron ka nakitang error pero yung severity niya is from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. Or pwede rin naman na ito ay requires immediate action, ito naman ay neutral, yung isa naman is agreeable or okay yung specific feature na yun, or yung heuristic na yun okay for the whole user information. And by the way, you have to assign UI parts for each evaluator. Okay, so you have to brief your evaluators about your objectives, the user backgrounds, the user interface sequence, and the evaluators independently conduct walkthrough. So independently sila, isa-isa sila. Probably they are not together, but they can be together, but they have their own thing. Depende dun sa na-assign sa kanila na UI parts. Or kung ano yung i-evaluate nila dun sa user interface. So you have to, then the evaluators you can use a form in order for the evaluators to write on. So here, they have used this form, including the task, the specific task, the screen, the heuristics that are violated, and the severity here on this column. Okay, so, and then after that, after they have conducted a walkthrough to identify the problems for the whole user interface or for the different parts assigned to them, then that's the time that you can collate and analyze the results. So this is a video about the heuristic evaluation. So let's all watch this video.
In this video, we'll walk through heuristic evaluations. A heuristic evaluation, also known as an expert review, is a way to ensure your website is user-friendly. A heuristic evaluation is similar to user testing, but in user testing, the testers are users, and heuristic evaluations, the testers are usability experts. Heuristic evaluations should be conducted alongside user testing early on in the software development lifecycle. These usability experts are professionals who are skilled in determining heuristic evaluation criteria and assessing a product against it. It is recommended that 3 usability professionals independently assess your product. However, startups can't always afford to hire 3 usability experts, so you can perform what's called a heuristic markup, which is where you perform the assessment yourself. In order to perform a heuristic evaluation, the usability experts must first choose the heuristic guidelines, second, define a rating system, and third, choose a method for documentation. There's a list of 250 plus qualitative guidelines to test against. However, it's safe to use Jakob Nielsen's 10 usability heuristics as a starting point. We'll walk through some examples of the good and the bad. First, there's visibility of a system status. The system should keep users informed of what's going on. In this example, TinyPNG shows you that there are 3 PNGs that have been compressed, while 2 are in progress and 1 has not started yet. Match between the system and the real world. The system should use language that is easy for your target user to understand. This is extremely important for error messages. In the below example, Microsoft produces an error that humans simply cannot understand. Third, user control and freedom. Users should be able to undo and redo actions, and also have the ability to move backward. There should always be an emergency exit. Gmail allows you to undo actions. This is important since people make mistakes. Fourth, consistency and standards. Screen elements should be consistent across the entire platform. Microsoft's header bars are identical for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, so users can switch between the 3 applications seamlessly. Fifth, error prevention. Errors should be kept to a minimum. You should try and prevent errors from happening by crafting careful design so users can't break your system. In this example, Gmail tries to limit your errors. When you write "see attached" in an email, Gmail checks to see if you have an attachment to make sure you didn't forget to attach a document. Recognition rather than recall. Minimize the user's cognitive load by making information from one part of the website relevant to another part of the website. When you visit Amazon, they include a list of your recently viewed items, and they provide suggestions based on your past searches. Seventh, flexibility and efficiency of use. Shortcuts allow experts to speed up the experience while being unseen to the novice user. These shortcuts are important because your system should cater to all ranges of expertise. In this example, Google hides the advanced features under More. Eighth, aesthetic and minimalist design. Irrelevant information should not be included in your design. You should limit the design to must-have elements only. Google landing pages are very simplistic and easy to navigate. Ninth, help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. Error messages should use plain language, without codes. They should indicate the problem and suggest a solution. Since I'm offline, Google Sheets lets me know that's why I can't edit my document and provides a solution to prevent this error in the future. Lastly, help and documentation. Although the ideal system shouldn't need documentation, there still should be documentation to provide the user with additional information. Airtable access to documentation so they can find answers on the fly. Thanks for watching.